Armin Meiwes was born in 1962. His parents owned a rambling manor house outside Rothenburg in central Germany, and it was here that he grew up, lived his adult life, and committed the acts for which he is now notorious. His father, who left when Meiwes was only 8, had ignored him when he was still around. The boy's mother, on the other hand, was incapable of letting him alone, and her suffocating attentions made him an object of ridicule at school. Not surprisingly, Meiwes retreated into a fantasy world, inventing an imaginary brother named Frankie. His plans for this brother, however, did not include the usual brotherly relations. Meiwes dreamt of binding Frankie to himself in perpetuity by the simple act of consuming him. This fantasy, he told a packed courtroom years later, had developed in the years after his father's departure. And in the end I fulfilled it, he concluded. In 1981 Meiwes joined the army, but he continued to live at home and took his mother with him on troop outings. At the end of the 1980s she became bedridden, and he left the army to train as a computer technician and look after her. Her death in 1999 set him free to pursue his fantasy. Hoping for like-minded guests, he set about renovating the rather dilapidated family home. Included in the makeover was a new slaughter room, complete with cage, meat hook and pulley. By day he went to work, by night he trawled the internet for others who shared his cannibalistic fantasies. He spoke to more than 200 of them on chat lines, and several came to visit after he posted the ad. Gay male seeks hunks 1830 to slaughter. Some allowed him to hoist them up on the hook and mark up the choicest cuts on their bodies with a pen. None, however, was actually willing to be eaten. Towards the end of 2000, a 43-year-old microchip engineer named Bernd-Jürgen Armando Brandes replied to Meiwes' advertisement using the pseudonym Cater, and over the next few months they communicated by email. Brandes said he was willing to fill the role Meiwes had marked out for Frankie. "There is absolutely no way back for me," he wrote, "only forwards, through your teeth." In March 2001 Brandes wrote a will leaving everything to his unknowing gay partner, had it notarized, and took the train westwards. According to Meiwes, Brandes met him at the station with the words, "I am your Cater, I am your flesh." Back at the house, they stripped off and discussed what they were about to do. After Brandes had consumed 20 sleeping tablets and half a bottle of schnapps to dull the expected pain, Meiwes removed his new friend's penis and testicles with a kitchen knife. This, like everything else which happened that evening, was faithfully recorded on his camcorder. He then put the genitalia into the frying pan and opened a bottle of white wine. The two men then ate as much of the sautéed flesh as they could manage, washing it down with the wine. By this time Brandes was losing a lot of blood, and Meiwes suggested that he take a bath. While Brandes bled out in the tub, Meiwes read part of a Star Trek novel and watched a Disney film on TV. "It took so terribly long," he said at his trial. Eventually a close to unconscious Brandes gave Meiwes permission to hang him up and finish him off. Meiwes did so, stabbing him several times. He then cut the fresh corpse into meal-sized portions and stacked them, neatly wrapped and labeled, in his freezer. Parts like the head, which he considered inedible, were buried in the back garden. He then slowly worked his way through the frozen portions, cooking them with olive oil and garlic. Meiwes would probably never have been caught if he had not tried to relive the experience. A new internet advertisement was reported to the police, who turned up at his door, searched the house, and found what was left of Brandes in the freezer and garden. Meiwes was only too willing to admit the killing and the eating. Both had been at the victim's request, he told the authorities, and he had the video evidence to prove it. Since cannibalism is not illegal in Germany, he was not charged with it, and, it seemed, Brandes's clear connivance in his own death made a conviction for murder unlikely. In May 2006, however, a court in Frankfurt convicted Meiwes, nicknamed Der Metzgermeister, or Master Butcher, of murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment.